This is part 3 of animals which may have inspired the overall designs of the monsters coming up within Monster Hunter Rise. In this one, we'll be taking a look at the Goss Harag as well as the Rakna-Kadaki. Hey everyone, Corner Pinoy X here once again, back with another Monster Hunter video, and this is the third part of our mini-series where we take a look at the monsters arriving within Monster Hunter Rise and comparing them to real-life animals and creatures to better understand the overall inspiration behind the design of these monsters coming up within this title. If you haven't seen the previous two parts of this mini-series where we covered 5 of the upcoming monsters within Monster Hunter Rise, I've gone ahead and put a link in the description below so you can go ahead and check out those two previous parts of this mini-series and see which kind of animals may have inspired the design of the monsters coming up within Monster Hunter Rise. Now in this one, we're going to take a look at the other fanged beast coming up in Rise, which is known as the Goss Harag, as well as the new Temnosaurus monster arriving within this title, known as the Rakna-Kadaki. First up, let's go ahead and take a look at the Goss Harag, one of the new fanged beasts arriving within Monster Hunter Rise. The Goss Harag is the second fanged beast to be introduced within Monster Hunter Rise, and this monster definitely has a fascinating design overall in comparison to the other fanged beasts introduced within this title. When we take a look at the main inspiration behind the Goss Harag, this monster is inspired by the yokai known as the Namahage. However, what Capcom have done here is they didn't really take any interpretation of the Namahage in Japanese text, for example, but rather they took the interpretation of the yokai based on modern day Japanese rituals where people would wear costumes based around the Namahage. So the costume of the people is the main inspiration behind the Goss Harag's design. That is the reason why when we take a look at the monster's facial structure, at first glance, it looks like the monster is wearing a mask. However, having said all of this, Capcom more than likely took inspiration from different kinds of mammals in order to create the illusion that the Goss Harag is a humanoid wearing the costume of the Namahage all the way to wearing the mask. When we take a look at the general body structure of this monster, instantly many people will notice that it's comparable to a modern bear. However, we're not just taking a look at a single type of bear here, we're actually taking a look at two types of them, the brown bear as well as the polar bear. When we take a look at the upper body structure of the monster, you'll notice a far leaner and far longer look to the monster's body. However, the lower areas look stubbier and more compact. The reason for this is because the upper body structure more than likely took inspiration from a polar bear, but the lower body structure took inspiration from a brown bear, and we can even see that on the fur coloration of the monster. The upper body is covered with gleaming white fur, but the lower body part is covered with subdued brown fur. So there's more than likely going to be two types of bear in order to create the general body structure of the monster. Complementing the bear-like structure of the Goss Harag, another type of mammal that possibly inspired the overall design of the monster is going to be some form of gorilla. The main reason for this is because when we observe the way the monster walks on all fours, you'll notice that Goss Harag does not utilize an open paw structure when walking on all fours, similar to what we see with bears, but rather it utilizes a form of knuckle walking, similar to gorillas. Alongside this, the forelegs of the monster have posable digits, again, similar to what we see with modern gorillas. So not only do you see the bear-like structure on this monster, you start to see the gorilla-like structure as well when observing the anatomy of the Goss Harag. Finally, let's talk about the animal that potentially inspired the facial structure of the Goss Harag. Possibly, it is some form of vampire bat, and the main reason for this is because when we take a look at the nose, the ears, the two front fangs, and possibly even the eyes of the monster, these are all key features on the monster's face that's comparable to what we see with a common vampire bat. However, because this monster takes inspiration from a Namahage mask as well, those hard rigid parts that you see on the monster's facial structure, they're subduing the vampire bat characteristics of the monster's face. So overall, by combining the key features of a vampire bat's facial structure to that of a Namahage mask, you get the overall construction of the Goss Harag's face within Monster Hunter Rise. Up next, we'll be taking a look at the upcoming Temnosaurus within Rise, known as the Rakna-Kadaki. But before we get started in this segment, we are going to take a look at some real-life spiders here. If you have any issues with seeing real-life spiders in general, or you have a case of arachnophobia, I highly advise skipping this segment in order to not risk yourself seeing those real-life spiders. This is going to be your warning once again. We are going to take a look at some real-life spiders, and if you don't want to see them, feel free to skip this segment. Past this point, I can only assume that you're alright to see some real-life spiders. I'll still give you a fair bit of warning before I showcase the picture, but do keep in mind, we are going to see some real-life spiders once again. Alright, so with regards to the Rakna-Kadaki, technically speaking, this is the second species of Temnosaurus to ever be introduced in the entirety of Monster Hunter. The first species are the Nursula, which encompasses the regular Nursula as well as the Shroud Nursula. Now, when we take a look at the Raktakadaki's main inspiration in Japanese mythology, this monster is inspired by two types of spider-like yokai. The first one is known as the Yorogumo. The Yorogumo are also portrayed as being beautiful young ladies that can shapeshift into spiders, which is interesting because when we take a look at the armor and weapon for this monster's armor set specifically, they're portraying people that are wearing some form of wedding attire. This is because the Yorogumo are not just portrayed as beautiful young ladies, they're usually portrayed as a newlywed young lady. So this is one of the key things that Capcom took inspiration from, not just for the design of the monster, but for the design of the armor set as well. Now, as we go through the Yorogumo theme here, the monster also has the ability to breathe fire. This is because it is believed that the Yorogumo has a young species of spiders that can breathe fire as well. So not only can the monster breathe fire, it can also utilize its young, the arachnoids, in order to attack hunters, all taken from the characteristics of the Yorogumo inspiration. The other inspiration for this monster is known as the Tsuchigumo. However, Tsuchigumo is actually for the name of the monster in the Japanese version of the game. The monster's name in Japanese is known as the Yatsukadaki. Yatsukadaki's name is directly taken from the Tsuchigumo's alternate name, which is the Yatsukahagi. So these are the two main inspirations for the monster when we observe the Japanese mythology in which this monster is currently based on, the Yorogumo and the Yatsukahagi. So now that we have taken a look at the mythology in which Rakna-Kadaki is derived from, let's now take a look at some real-life spiders which may contribute to the overall design of the monster that we see in Rise. Now, the most prominent characteristic of Rakna-Kadaki is the extremely long and prominent neck. These are not usually seen with real-life spiders. However, there is one species of spider that does have a very long neck relative to the body of the creature. These are known as Pelican Spiders, and I'm about to show an image of the Pelican Spider now, so if you have any issues with Pelican Spiders or the spiders in general, now's a good time to move away from the screen. Here is the Rakna-Kadaki as you can see it in Rise with its neck fully stretched out. And here is an image of the Pelican Spider with its neck fully stretched out. The main difference between the two creatures is that Rakna-Kadaki does not have the long mandibles that we see with the Pelican Spider. Alongside this, Capcom exaggerated the length of the monster's neck in comparison to what we see with the Pelican Spider. So more than likely, this Pelican Spider is the main inspiration behind the Rakna-Kadaki's design regarding the neck of the monster. Another species of spider that may have inspired the Rakna-Kadaki's design in Rise is going to be some form of wolf spider. Now, wolf spiders in general are well known for carrying their children across their body. This is something that we see with Rakna-Kadaki in Rise. Now, in this part, I'm gonna showcase the difference between the wolf spider and Rakna-Kadaki. So once again, if you have any issues with seeing real-life spiders, now's a good time to move away from the screen. Here is what we see with the Rakna-Kadaki's abdomen, and here is what we see with real-life wolf spiders. The biggest difference here is the amount of children that each creature can carry. Rakna-Kadaki can carry up to 5 or 6 arachnoids, whereas a wolf spider carries well over 100 of its children across its entire body. So there are going to be some differences between the real-life inspiration as well as the actual monster that we see within Monster Hunter Rise. Alongside this, Rakna-Kadaki weaponizes the arachnoids in Rise. This is not something that we see with real-life wolf spiders as far as I'm aware. So overall, the wolf spider and the Pelican Spider are the two possible inspiration behind the overall design of Rakna-Kadaki coming up within Monster Hunter Rise. And that is currently all we have time for in observing the Goss Harag as well as the Rakna-Kadaki, the two new monsters arriving in Rise, and better understanding what kind of animals and creatures may have inspired their overall design. Now once again, just like with the other two parts of this miniseries, these are only speculations as to what kind of animals and creatures may have inspired these monsters. This means that Capcom may not have even used any of these creatures that I've mentioned in order to create the design of these monsters, so do keep that in mind. But with all of that being said, what do you think about the Goss Harag as well as the Rakna-Kadaki, the two new monsters arriving within Monster Hunter Rise? Let us know in the comments below your thoughts and opinions regarding these two new monsters arriving within this title. Now with all of that being said, if you enjoyed these videos, please consider leaving a like on the video itself and subscribing to the channel as well as hitting that bell icon so you can go ahead and catch up on any future Monster Hunter content that I might be doing or any other games that I might be playing in future. Until then, I hope you enjoyed this video, thanks ever so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Onward and upward.